Hi guys, it's Kelly here and I'm back with another video for Honeybee Stamps. Today we're going to be using the Better Together stamps and dies, the Pumpkin Patch, which at this time of year is so my go-to, and then the Bitty Buzzwords stamps and dies as well. I thought it would be fun to do a little bit of a scene card, kind of mixing up the color scheme a little bit. So here I'm going to use my pumpkins as kind of like a simple backdrop to kind of set my scene for where they're at. It's going to be more of a, I don't want to say nightfall, like a dusk, like sunset scene, just so I can use some pretty fun colors. So here, once I've decided what is going to be in the foreground or in the background of my cards, I'm going to go ahead and stamp that down. All of the stamping is going to be done with Copic Safe ink because I am going to be, in addition to ink blending, I'm going to be Copic coloring. Here I've just cut up some pieces of Eclipse masking tape so that I can mask these for the distress inking portion. These are really simple shapes. Clouds are super cute, right? And the pumpkins are really easy to cut out. You'll see that I didn't necessarily get my masks lined up perfectly. That's not a big deal. The way that I correct that is I just find a Copic marker that is very similar in shade and then just kind of outline it. It's never really gone wrong for me. And so I'm going to mask these and then do the rest of my stamping, which is the bigger pumpkins on either side. This is, I guess I'm looking for a little bit of forgiveness because one of these pumpkins is huge and it's about the same size as my deer, which is probably not really realistic, but I'm okay with it. It's just meant to be a cute, colorful kind of card. So here I've picked out some distress inks that I'm going to be using, and then everything is masked off. If you have, like how I've stamped my pumpkins off the edge, for your masks, just wrap it around the back so that way you don't end up pulling it up with your ink blending. And then I'm just creating that same sunset look that I was talking about. So from yellow to orange to pink to purple with a little bit of blue. The blue is not readily apparent. It's really just kind of shading that purple. So it's not as bright, and I'm totally fine with that. I always do my distress inking twice. You guys know that if you watch my videos. So once I do from lightest to darkest, then I'm going to do darkest back to lightest. This shouldn't be a surprise. I do my Copic coloring the same way, right? So you can tell that this is sped up a little bit just because it is monotonous to watch. It's not very interesting to watch ink blending, and it does take a little bit of time. So in order not to cross-contaminate my colors, I just left my card where it was and kind of awkwardly held it in place with my left hand. And then the bottom colors there were crushed olive and peeled paint. You could certainly do a brighter green, but I wanted to do something that was a little bit darker, just because it is a evening scene. You know I cannot do a distress ink background without some perfect pearl spatters. I just can't. I don't know why. I have no self-control when it comes to the perfect pearls. The scene is really pretty without it, so I don't know why I can't leave it alone. I just like the little extra something or other that it adds to my card. Anybody else? Anybody? So I did block off the grass portion of it with just my hand. You could use a scrap piece of paper, just so that the spatters would only kind of be in the sky portion. And then once that was all done and dry, I am going to remove the masks and then get into the coloring. I knew that I was going to do multiple clouds, so I wanted some to be in the foreground and some to be in the background. And so these are my two background clouds. I'm just pointing that out because As far as a design element, the placement of them by themselves with no added clouds is not great. So I just don't want you to be like, okay, I've watched 5 minutes of her video and I'm done now, and this is a really good placement for clouds. It's not. You have to add a little something extra to them. So here I have spaced out all of my stamps in order to be able to do my die cutting. This is something that I am doing a little bit more nowadays. Not that I still don't love a one layer card, and this is mostly flat. But I have found that other people really do enjoy using the dies, and there are some people who are just not capable of fussy cutting. Whether that's for medical reasons or, maybe they have difficulty with their eyesight or their hands shake. So I just like to show you guys alternatives to what I normally do. And realistically, as I get older, I'm not going to stop card making. That's crazy. So then this may be, tricks that I also need to use as I get older. So here I'm doing the coloring for the deer. This is kind of like my go-to brown combination. It's the E50 family. There's not really a whole lot. Like, I guess when I was doing my shading, I was more or less thinking about like a center highlight point, like with the sun being in the background, that it would be darker kind of around the edges of the front, and then it would be lighter around like the edges of the top. So like their back, the top of their head is going to get a lot more light. And then you want to add shading to the back legs more so than the front, so that way they sit in the back when you're looking at it visually. And then especially where like their haunches are coming up and over around their belly, there's going to be shading there. I know that we've talked about it before. It's any point where two objects meet or where one lays on top of the other, you would add shading. And realistically, with my darkest color, I'm really only putting in just like a line, and it's not even in all the places. It's only in the places where I really need it to be the darkest, like the back legs, underneath their chin would be pretty dark, where that leg comes up and over, where the scarf is laying on top of their body. But if you've watched my videos before, you know that when we talk about coloring, that your mid colors, whatever those are, in this case for the deer, my mid colors are my E55 and my E57. Those are going to be what you're going to see the majority of. The 53 is just a highlight color, and the 59 is just a shadow color. I did with the deer add a little bit of shading into their ear with the E53, just to kind of blend in the pink I'm going to add in later. But then once that's done, I have a little mouse here and a little bunny. I thought about doing them two different colors, but I really felt like because I had so many colors going on in the sky and in the background of the card, that it would make more sense, and they would be more fluid if I did them the same color. So I have my little gray mouse and my little gray bunny. And you can make these as dark or as light as you would like. I made them a little bit lighter just because, the card is at sunset, so everything is a smidge darker. So I kept, just to the C1, 3, and 5, but you could still get the same effect with a white bunny. If you wanted to do them white, you would just add substantially less of the same color combinations I just gave you. Or you could do, a dark gray bunny by adding in a C7 or a C9. And it would still give you the same feel, that it wouldn't be competing with the other colors. It was just, quite frankly, it was easier to just do them the same color, and so that is why I did it that way. So as far as story time goes, today is the 30th of October. I am still enormously pregnant, and I have never been more done with something in my entire life. So we went to our regular OB appointment on Thursday. Even though I am 39 weeks pregnant, I am measuring at, wait for it, 43. So I could not be, I don't know that I could be any more uncomfortable than I am right now. This poor baby does not have any room, and I have even less than that. So we did talk about possibly being induced. But I guess because of staffing, that is kind of a thing right now. Where before, they were much more likely to induce you, especially if you were looking at a bigger baby, which we are. But now with the short staffing, pretty much what she told us is they'll call you to schedule it if you don't go into labor before then. And then once you have it scheduled, if somebody else who, like, there's like a time slot, I guess, for your induction, which sounds crazy to me because, like, I was in labor with Peanut for 13 hours, and like my mom was in labor with my sister for like 22 hours. Like, I don't even understand, like, here, let's schedule this spot and then you might be here for 3 days. It'll be fine. It's good. But with that said, if somebody else who has a medical emergency and needs to be induced comes up, they can cancel your spot. So the other thing that is different is, like, when they sent me to do with Peanut, they were going to induce me because my blood pressure was so high. Thankfully, my blood pressure has been really good with this pregnancy. But they they sent me to be induced at like 6 p.m. And I guess because it was medically necessary. And then, like, my water ended up breaking after they did, I think it's called Cervidil. It's just like the disc that they put up in your cervix to soften it. Then my water broke on its own. I never needed the Pitocin. We were in full labor, like, right after that happened, which was the next morning. But I guess now the popular way to do it is with balloon dilation. So basically, there's 2 balloons. One is set inside your cervix and one is set outside, and they kind of fill with saline fluid, dilating your cervix until you're approximately 3 to 4 centimeters dilated. And then after that, that's when they would start the Pitocin and kind of really kick off your labor. That sounds wonderful, right? Like, hey, they're giving you a jump start on all these centimeters that you have to wait to be dilated. But I actually did a little bit of research into it, and apparently it's a really uncomfortable process to have done, and I am not really looking forward to that. But considering I am uncomfortable every single day, the problem, I guess, is, which is something that I did not have with Nathan. Like, I had the swollen feet with Nathan. Super uncomfortable. The, like, not being able to sleep, totally have that again. The joint pain, just because, like, I'm not used to carrying around this much extra weight. So, like, my hips hurt, my back hurts, all that fun stuff that I'm sure if you have ever had a child, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But really, the thing that I did not have with Nathan that I do with this child that is so immensely uncomfortable is the tightness in my belly. It's pretty much tight all of the time. And it's like being constantly contracted. Nobody seems to be concerned about it. They're like, oh, Braxton Hicks, whatever. And then somebody was like, oh, maybe you're dehydrated. But, like, it can't be dehydration. It cannot be. Like, I am drinking all of the liquids. It cannot be dehydration. So I don't really know what is causing it, but I do know it's wicked uncomfortable. And I'm just so sick and tired of it. So there's that. Back to the card for a minute. So here what I'm doing is I'm putting in the shadows because the light is behind it. So my pumpkins would be backlit. I could have really taken this to the next step and made the pumpkin fronts much darker. They would be lighter around the edges, kind of almost like a glow. But I just wanted the shadow. So I'm taking all kind of liberties with this card. I do what I want. It's my card. Here I'm just getting my dies out. I did end up die cutting a portion of my sentiment as well. There's so many super cute ones in this Bitty Buzzwords. These are such great collections. And there's one that they just released for Christmas too, but this is the fall one, and it says, "Hey there, pumpkin," which is cute because like you have the little mouse and the bunny that are giving each other the pumpkins. It's like a great pumpkin exchange. So I am stamping part of it, and then the other part of it, I die cut the shadow portion out of black, and then the actual word pumpkin out of white, just so it would stand out. You know, I love my black and white sentiments. That's not news. I've been doing them that way for, I think, years now at this point. So here I'm just going to go ahead and glue that down. For the dot on the eye, I just made sure I set it off to the side, and then I used my pokey tool. This is my little honeybee pokey tool that I used to poke out like the die. What are that? Is that the negative? The positive? I can't remember. This part's in between the letters that you don't want to keep. That part of it. So I used that to pick up my eye and glue that down. Everything got glued down flat. You certainly could take the time to pop them up, but I was fine with it being flat. The reason I was fine with it being flat is because I knew that I was going to be trying to hide those white edges. Again, no state secret. I don't care for the white edges, especially in a scene card. They don't bother me in other scenarios, but because I do so many scene cards, I don't love that. Here, this is really the first time I've ever had to do this, and it's just because of how I positioned the mouse. I actually kind of had to sketch in the deer's leg. Fortunately, that wasn't very intricate at all. I just had to do like one light brown line and then color in his foot, and it worked out just fine. But what I'm doing here is just going around and picking colors that match the background and filling them in. One word of caution is just be mindful of where you're coloring at. It is sometimes difficult to pay attention to the edges of things, and it happens to me with this cloud up in the top left corner. I was so involved in outlining the things and paying attention to my colors and trying to get them to match that I didn't leave any area for where the two clouds overlap, and that part should be white, and instead I colored it in pink. Do I think it's earth-shattering? No, I don't, and that's why I left it and I didn't try to fix it. But just so you know, that is a common mistake. Even I make it. Here I'm just adding some glitters. After I was doing my glitters and then looking at my card, I decided that I didn't really love the shadow. So I decided that I was going to go back in with a darker green marker and add darker shadows toward the base of the pumpkins as well as my little characters. And then I did go back in with the original color, which I think was a YG95, and then just blend them all in so that the shadows were like they weren't color blocked. And then that's it. That's the whole card. So thank you guys so much for joining me. I did pay attention to what you asked for in the last video, and I will be doing a comparison with the ink test pencils and the Zig Clean Colors. That'll be our next video. So thank you guys so much for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.